Hi, welcome back to Called to the Home. Today we're going to continue our series on budgeting, and I trust that today's episode is going to be quite a bit shorter than the last few. There's not any kitchen math that we need to do this time. So today we're going to talk about the second item that the scriptures tell us we genuinely do need. However, balancing our need with the concept that, just because I need it doesn't mean I need 9 million of it. And so that second item is clothing. I don't have quite as many things to talk about, so as I said, this episode will be quite a bit shorter than the others. But I want to split clothing into two different categories and just give you some things to think about. You may already be doing a fantastic job in this area, and if your budget is already working out, then you don't really need to make any changes. This is primarily targeted towards those who need to find a little bit more room in their budget or think maybe that they could simply do better to free up some finances to promote to heavenly uses, things that would have eternal value. So as we look at clothing, I want to split the category into children versus adults. And the reason I'm splitting it there is because children outgrow their clothes very quickly. With, of course, the exception of boys and pants, they generally will outgrow it before they outwear it. With adults, it's the opposite. You'll outwear it, you'll never outgrow it, provided you stay within a healthy weight range. And so I want to talk first about children's clothing, and then we'll get into kind of adult clothing. So with children's clothing, there are a couple of things that are just universal principles of wisdom, would apply both to children and adults. And then there's some things because they're children and they're going to outgrow the clothes more than they're going to outwear the clothes, to just be wise about your purchases. So generally speaking, in America, so again, my primary audience, we have way too many clothes. When we consider in the biblical context, the amount of clothes people typically had was 2 outfits, period. The one they're wearing right now, and a clean outfit to change into. And they did the wash every single day so that they had always a second clean outfit to wear for the following day. When you consider in America how many outfits of clothing we have, how many different occasions of clothing that we have in our closets, we are incredibly blessed. Now, that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean I would advocate eliminate all but 2 outfits in your closet. But it does mean that gives us a good historical perspective. If I have 32 different outfits in my closet, that's not normal, and in fact, that is quite excessive, even by American standards. So we want to consider as we look at what do I genuinely need and what do my children need for the coming season, that we need to resist the impulse to buy something just because it's cool or cute or pretty. Oftentimes we'll say, oh, that's a great deal and it's so darling, let's get it. But if I don't need it, pass it by. Let someone else have it. Or if I do genuinely think it's better than what I currently have, get that and get rid of the one I currently have. Sell it or donate it. We don't need to keep adding to our closets. Generally speaking, 5 to 8 outfits for the season, for the person is enough. 5 to 8 outfits. In fact, I would say even 8 outfits for a child, especially a young child that gets into lots of messes, is probably reasonable. But for an adult, that's actually quite excessive as well. Granted, of course, you probably have some that are a little bit fancier for more formal occasions. Things like Sunday worship, maybe a family fancy get-togethers, and then other things that you generally wear for every day. We'll talk about that more in a moment when we get to the adult category. But I would say limit yourself to 8 outfits. And when we talk about per season, we need to consider not 4 seasons, because then that's 32 outfits of clothes per child per year. That's ridiculous. We need to consider summer and winter, period. You need to think in layers rather than getting things that are only useful for 2 months out of the year. And we need to think about those 2 categories, summer and winter. So a child should have 8 outfits that they could safely and warmly wear in winter, and 8 outfits that they could safely, modestly, and coolly wear in summer. And there ought to be overlap between said outfits. So I'll just give you some examples. We'll talk about, kind of the age range of 2 to 10. And we'll talk about babies and things like that in just a second. So for a 2 to 10-year-old, Majority of your tops ought to be short-sleeved items because in the winter and fall and spring when it's cool or windy or rainy, you can simply throw on a jacket or sweater over top of it and move on. So that most of your tops should be useful then for both seasons. I live in Georgia, so granted, it's farther in the south than some of you may live, and so you may need a little warmer layers to add to those things. But even in Georgia, a short sleeve shirt worn underneath then a sweater or a long sleeve shirt is more than sufficient to add the layers necessary for cooler seasons. You can use coats and other things to get the even warmer weather, or sorry, I should say winter times, to make your child warmer in winter times. So you don't need to buy lots of thick sweaters and things like that unless you live in a place where it's very, very cold outside for many, many months out of the year. Generally speaking, layering what you already have underneath a nice warm coat is sufficient. So you do have to consider your location, but let's be wise and not just go out on a spree because all of the long sleeve sweaters and things are so cute and pretty. We really just don't need them. So in my house, typically the children have 5 to 8 short sleeve shirts, maybe 2 or 3 long sleeve ones because we do live in the South and it's just usually not cool enough to justify wearing them, especially not indoors. And then they have, if they're girls, a sweater, if they're boys, a jacket, so they can throw over top of any of those if the weather is a little cool outside. And then for winter times, they have a coat. So they can wear all of those layers, short sleeve shirt, sweater, and coat, and they're more than warm enough in the winter time here. Now you may need to add an undershirt that's long sleeve or something along those lines for warmer areas, but that's more than sufficient to make those shirts then work for me in both seasons. We want to think about versatility, things like the capsule wardrobe. If you want to Google search it, that's one of those buzzwords that'll give you the idea of what I'm talking about, is making sure that each individual item of clothing that you purchase for your children and for yourself is able to be used in as many combinations with as many of the bottoms and as many as the seasons as you can possibly get out of it. There are some really pretty and really cool single season items that you really should just say no to because they're single season items, no matter how good of a deal it is. All it's going to do is contribute to closet clutter being thrown in a heap on the floor that mom then has to pick up and launder. So just don't do that. For the children, again, looking at this kind of 2 to 10 age range, looking at bottoms, my boys wear pants year round. So we don't play the here's shorts in summer and here's pants in winter time game. We don't do that. You can pick cool pants that aren't jeans, that aren't really thick. Certainly nothing fleece lined would be good for summer. So I just don't buy that, period. Again, I don't live in a place where it's snowy and cold a lot, and so I don't need that really hardly ever. So we just use that year round. So again, they're 5 to 8 pairs of pants. That's going to be all season pants, and they're going to work all year round. And so that ensures that I don't need 16 outfits for my boys. Generally, 8 with a couple of items for layering is enough to get us through the entire size until they outgrow it. Now, boys in pants. Okay, let's talk about that while we're here. They put holes in those pants so fast. This is one of those places where you have a couple of options. So option number 1, you can buy lined pants. So there's a couple different places. Target sells them, I know. Walmart does not sell them. But there's also expensive department store brands. I'm going to be honest, having tested them out on my own 4-year-old right now, it doesn't matter what store it comes from or how many layers it is, he will put holes through every single layer eventually, no matter if it was a $30 pair of pants or a $6 pair of pants. So stop. Save yourself the trouble. Unless you've happened to have found a brand that really truly does hold up to the destructive nature of boys in those knees, don't spend the money on these expensive ones in the hopes that they won't put holes in them, because they probably will. Instead, it is wise for you to learn how to mend them. There's iron-on patches for those that are very low skilled in the sewing department, but what I found to be most effective, again, just personally speaking, is knit fabric. Way better than iron-on and way better than woven fabric. So if you go on the inside, flip them inside out, either iron on or sew on, depending on your skill. Knit fabric to the inside where those knee areas are. They won't bust through that. And so that has been my secret and has kept my boys, even though they've put holes in the pants, it helps them to be easily patched and get lots more wear out of them because that's the only part of the pants that gets worn. You want to consider if they're too long and your boys are maybe scuffing up the bottoms and ripping the hems, you need to roll those. So teach them if they're older how to roll them themselves, but you can roll those up high enough that they don't scuff them up as they're playing outside in the yard. So be mindful of those. Are some simple things you can do to get the best wear out of highly destructible boys' clothings. Now let's talk about baby sizes for a minute. So this one is a little trickier just because babies have spit ups and accidents and things like that that kind of mess up the clothes. So some things that are out there already, I'm sure you're aware of. There's those bandanas that you can put around the baby's necks. I'm always concerned about it becoming a choking hazard or strangulation risk. So you always want to make sure that it's something that's really easy with the slightest pull on it, it kind of comes off. So that's a possibility for kind of saving clothes and getting multiple children's usage out of them. But generally you want 8 to 10 probably outfits for the child. And just get what you need for that season. They'll outgrow it before the next season even comes along, so you know how that is. And then we want to talk about what about the adult kind of age. So once the child hits the point in life where they're not outgrowing a size by the time you get to the next season, depending on girl or boy, generally that happens right around puberty and beyond. They generally get a whole year, sometimes 2 years, out of a size before they move on. You then want to start thinking a little bit more about longevity of clothes. When they're young and they outgrow the clothes quickly, it is not wise to follow the common advice that says, spend the more money, get quality clothes, they'll last longer. Not if they're going to outgrow it before it outwears. So if they're outgrowing clothes and by the next season they need the next size up, then you didn't get your money out of that expensive item. So buy cheap clothes for the children when they're in that quick size changing. Once they hit the slowdown, that's when we want to think about paying a little bit more, not a lot more, and certainly not going beyond budget, but for quality clothes because they might be wearing this for 2 or 3 years. Now, of course, by the time they stop growing, females usually around 15, 16, and males much older, then those clothes are the clothes they may have for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so you certainly want to consider quality and timelessness there. I would encourage as we look at this age group, that I've stopped growing pretty much or I've slowed down growing significantly all the way through end of adulthood, that we consider things that are timeless and classic and we stay away from things that are trendy and flashy. Because timeless and classic clothes, it's not going to look weird when you wear it in the next decade or 2 decades down the road. And so you want to just kind of be mindful of that. In our household, we don't do clothes with words on them, period, regardless of what it is or what the message says. And so that also helps in that effect of it being versatile. So I could wear it, with a dressy skirt or dress pants to church and it would look nice. But I could also wear it with, something less dressy and it's not so formal at home. And it's timeless. In the next decade, that phrase or slogan or TV show has not gone, out of date and no one knows what it's about. So that's another thing of wisdom just to think about. Now, of course, my 4-year-old has a Mario t-shirt, so it doesn't mean we never, 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 but I didn't buy it. So I will say that. It was a gift from someone else, and that's fine. We let him wear that. But just as a planning purposes and purchasing for clothing, you want to think about those things. Again, for adults, you want to get the most use out of what you have. It is common to go, oh, I need everything that goes with white and everything that goes with black and everything that goes with brown. And then you've got to have the right color shoes to match each set of outfit capsules and the right sets of sweaters and the right sets of skirts and the right set, right? You have to do this whole game. Stop. Pick one color scheme. And for the next 10 years, that's your color scheme. Everything in your outfit can fit into that color scheme, and you only need one set of shoes and one set of sweaters, and everything kind of mixes and matches together. This is called the capsule wardrobe. And I'm addressing that primarily to women because we're the ones that are most responsible for this craziness with our outfits of having to have all the colors and all the possible coordinations. It's not frugal. And it's quite excessive to have that many items in our closet and in our wardrobe. We're wasting a lot of resources. There's things sitting in our closet that really someone else could be using. And so we just want to think about those things, maybe some growth possible in those areas. So again, in my climate and area, it doesn't get that cold for long. Now it is in the 20s right now, so it's not like it doesn't get cold. We don't go outside much in those weathers, and we have layers. So, I mean, you can see right now, this is my normal short sleeve shirt that I wear in the summertime, right now with a sweater because it's colder. I go outside and I wear a coat over top of that, and that's fine. It's perfect for here. You might need to add another layer to that if you're in a colder climate, but that same idea of that capsule wardrobe still works. So a couple of short-sleeved shirts that work all year round. For females, a couple of skirts that can be worn at home or at church. It's okay to be a little more formal at home and not be, ball gown formal at church ever. And so my wardrobe is such that it doesn't matter what the occasion is, I can wear pretty much anything that I have in my wardrobe in any occasion. And so it all mixes and matches. All the skirts go with all the shirts as much as possible. And we still have color in there, that's fine. But you try to pick pieces that go easily together with other things. So not some bizarrely colored prints that don't really go with other items. You want to kind of avoid those pieces. Pretty though they may be, they are not very versatile and not very useful. Certainly not a practical purchase. And then for men, similar idea. If you need to do a capsule wardrobe, keeping budget low, it's wise to wear collared shirts. So lots of short sleeve collared shirts. You can wear that in a more formal occasion. You can wear that, dressed down with jeans at home and it looks not like super formal either. But it's not this, sloppy, here's my t-shirt with something on it type of thing. So you may not need to do that. You may have the finances to have tons of items in your wardrobe. And if you wear them all regularly, that's fine. But again, just giving some advice for ways that you can kind of cut down. You shouldn't get into the mindset of ditching clothes because you're bored with them. That's not wise. And so you need to practice contentment that as long as the clothes were modest when you bought them, just because you're bored with them now doesn't mean anything. That's just your flesh's pull towards discontentment, which is not biblical, not godly trait to have. So that's something we need to reflect on and think about. As we look at changing our wardrobe each season as adults, we really don't need to do that. You really should only be going out and buying something new because the one you previously had has worn out and you genuinely need a replacement for it. So it shouldn't be that as adults we get into this habit of each season we're going out and buying new clothes. You didn't outgrow the clothes from the last season, so what do you need now? And so some things to think about. Likewise with shoes, right? You should have summer shoes, winter shoes. Ideally, pick shoes that work in multiple occasions so you can wear them out shopping and you can wear them at church. They're versatile. If they are shoes that only make sense at church, you probably don't need that. So hopefully you see what I'm saying here. It is possible, so don't look at me and say it's not because I've been doing it for 10 years, so it can be done, and I know many people that do as well. But generally speaking, women, you don't ever need high heels. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. They're A, horribly bad for your bones, so you know that already. No, I'm not saying anything new. And B, they're not practical for anything outside of a bizarre formal occasion. So stop. On the other hand, if you do a lot of exercising and running and things that might require a little bit more of an athletic soul, then you might need a pair of athletic shoes. I hate athletic shoes, so I do not own athletic shoes. I just make sure the shoes that I get have good insoles in them and they work well and are versatile for any of the environments that I place myself in. But it's okay if you need to also buy yourself a pair of athletic shoes. Consider how much actual wear you put on those shoes. You probably don't need to get new ones for far longer than you imagine, unless you get in a lot of decent mileage. You're running 15 miles a week, then you probably will need new shoes more quickly than other people would. So those are just some kind of big picture things to think about. How many items of clothing do you need? Thinking about seasons, thinking about ages and stages of life. Next, I want to switch gears. So we've talked about children, we've talked about adults, and kind of focus on what are some ways I can save money and think wisely about where I get my clothes from when I do need something new. I have totally worn something out, it's 15 years old, it's time to go, or the children have outgrown it, what do I do? So in this day and age, you have a couple of options that are more inexpensive and wouldn't be the same as options people would have talked about 200 years ago. So once upon a time, it was always cheaper to make it yourself. That's not always the case now. So these days, if it's an item of clothing that children outgrow very quickly, or frankly for adults, because we rarely outgrow or outwear, I should say, our clothing, look and see if you can find it at a Goodwill or a thrift shop first. Now, it's not always cheaper, so here's how I check myself to make sure, is this a good purchase? I look for items new at Walmart, not the name brand stuff, just Walmart brand, and that's my price point. So if I can get new shirts for the boys, for $4 to $6 at Walmart and brand new pair of pants for $8 to $12 at Walmart, then I will not spend more than that at a thrift store for those sorts of items. Because why would I buy it used if I can get it new at Walmart? Of course, I know there's some exceptions, but it's name brand. Yeah, so if they're going to outgrow it in 6 months before they outwear it, that it was name brand made zero difference. So we have to think wisely about things. Just because it's a name brand doesn't always mean the quality is justifying the price. So thrift store, Goodwill, generally speaking, with inflation in 2026, a decent price for an item of clothing, whether it be a shirt or a skirt or a dress or pants, at the Goodwill is about $5 to $6. That's just what it's going for now. It used to be cheaper, but that's what it is. If you live in New York or California, God bless you. Things are way more expensive there because of the politics. So that is what it is. But generally speaking, normal mainstream America, that's about the range that it is. You can oftentimes get them much more cheaply at church consignment sales, but they're not available everywhere. So do a lot of internet sleuthing. Facebook is a lot of the ads show up there, especially spring and fall. Usually church do the sales twice a year. And so that's where I score most of the children's clothing. And there I can expect to spend, $1 to $2 per item of clothing. It's way, way cheaper than either new at Walmart or at the Goodwill. But those are some places that you should go first. For an adult clothing, if it's not something you literally need right now, like you'll go naked tomorrow because you don't have it, then you could shop for some time. So your next place is to look at the discount stores like Ross and Marshalls and TJ Maxx, these stores where they take things from these more expensive department stores and then they then discount to try and move the product along. You can shop for 6, 8, 10 months and finally find that piece you're looking for. So try to put yourself in a situation where you don't have to go out and buy something brand new right now just to get by. So just kind of keep an eye on things as they start to wear out. The kids start to outgrow a size, start looking. I typically buy one season ahead for my kids, if not a whole year ahead. So when I go to the spring consignment sales, because I can get items for $1 or $2 a piece, I look at what can I get them for this year to fill in any gaps in the clothing that they need so that they hit that 5 to 8 outfits per season. And what can I get in the next size so that next year I have a head start, because there's no guarantee that at next year's consignment sale I will find the necessary items to complete their 5 to 8 outfits. So with children, I'm always looking for this size and the next size. I don't advocate looking too many sizes ahead, just because sometimes with growth spurts and growth slowdowns, they might be in the wrong season. And they might end up not wearing that item that you got them at all, unless it's one of those works in all seasons things. So short sleeve shirts, long pants for the boys, long skirts for the girls, I will buy those regardless of season when it is, because I know they'll wear that. But things that are seasonal, the long sleeve shirts and things of that nature, be very careful buying that too far in advance, because you just don't know what size they'll be in when they hit that season. So those are some things to think about. But to recap so far, best places to find good prices on clothes: number 1, consignment, thrift, Goodwill. Number 2, secondhand department store discounts, so Ross, TJ Maxx, Marshalls. Once you hit those two and you've not found it, now is where it may actually be cheaper to make it. So you can get fabric very inexpensively at Walmart, of all places. If you can find fabric and you can live with that fabric at Walmart, there is no place that I have found that is cheaper, including all of the online mass market fabric retailers. There used to be a lot more in-person fabric stores. They have, over the last 2 decades, almost all gone out of business. If you happen to live near one, count yourself blessed because that is not the norm anymore. So Joann is gone. They actually weren't that fantastic price-wise anyways, but a lot of those old fabric places have just gone. And so Walmart is a great place to look. You can get a lot of their fabric online and shipped to you, but they have most of every store has them in store as well. So you can find all kinds of cottons, all kinds of knits, all kinds of satins, fancy girl dress fabrics and things there. So that's a good place to look. For our family, sometimes the issue is not that we can't find something in our price range, but that we can't find something modest. And so this comes around, you look at the Goodwill, you look at the thrift stores, you look at the department store discount places, and whatever was in style the last 2, 3 years was not modest. And so if you're stuck in that place, if you've been looking for 6 to 10 months and you can't find it, you're hitting that point where you really do need it now, you can develop some sewing skills. It's very simple to make several items, and there's all kinds of pattern descriptions online. The easiest thing to do, though, is just take something you like that already fits well, lay it down on a big sheet of paper. It can be the back of wrapping paper, whatever you've got, and trace it. Cut that out, sew it together. Very straightforward. Now, obviously, there's some more details to that, and in the future, we'll have a sewing crash course. We kind of go through those things. But you can make things like skirts very easily. It's a front piece and a back piece. You sew the two sides together, ta-da, it's done. If you'd like it to be stretchy, sew a piece of elastic around the top. Very, very easy. And you can get it the length that you want. You can pick out whatever color fabric that you like. And all of that can be done very inexpensively. So I can make a skirt for us and the family for anywhere from $4 to $6. It would cost me to make a skirt. Shirts are a little harder because usually those fabrics have a little more pieces to them, their sleeves and all of that, and linings and things of that nature. So it may be just a slight bit more than that. Dresses, obviously, more fabric, but that's your price point for making it. I can typically buy it, save myself the time of making it at the Goodwill or thrift store, so I wouldn't go that route if that was available. But once you hit option 3, you've exhausted those other 2 items. Making it is now your kind of best place to go. Then, once you've run out of those, if you absolutely have to have it and budget is an object, Walmart is your next best bet. After Walmart fails you, you're going to go to the internet, and buying it from online is your next cheapest option. So sometimes that's Amazon, oftentimes that's third-party sellers that are selling it through Amazon. Walmart's in that market now, so their online website attempting to compete with Amazon actually has a lot of third-party or aftermarket items as well. So you can go those routes. I have not shopped in an actual department store in over a decade at this point. So you don't have to go that route at all, ever. And truly, even with sales and discounts, it's just because I can get it cheaper elsewhere or I can make it cheaper myself. So I'm not going to go that route. Now, again, if money's not the object, it's not like, department stores are evil and getting clothes from them is bad, but just something to think about, that those who are operating under a budget and who are trying to be very frugal with their spending, they don't shop there, ever, period. And that's just life. So hopefully those are some things to help you kind of think about what you've got in your closet, how you can be wise with what you have, how you can be content with what you've had for the last 5 years that still has plenty of wear left in it. The last thing I would leave you with is simply just Depression era advice. Just because something's button fell off or has a little rip or tear somewhere doesn't mean you should ditch the whole garment. So if it's a button that fell off, it's so easy. If you can tie a knot, you can sew a button back on. Get a button. Hobby Lobby has them for $1. You can get a pack of 6 to 8 of them. Sew a button back on that and move on with life. Likewise with little rips and tears. You can get a little patch, you can make one, just sew something over it, sew it shut. It's very easy. YouTube tutorials abound and make this very simple to do, and it's just as simple as tying a knot and moving a needle through some fabric a couple stitches. So anyone can do that. So I encourage you not to ditch items just because of minor little tears or rips or button losses. You can fix all of those things. Make friends with people who know how to do it and ask them to teach you, not fix it, so that you gain some skills. And that will help your wardrobe to go much, much farther, last longer, and you to save your money on these things. That's all for today. Next time.